so that eventually, beginning in July of 2011, we can begin to hand over responsibility to the Afghan government, to Afghan security forces, and begin to remove our troops. To the point that you make, though, there are obviously a full range of challenges in Afghanistan on the civilian side, all the way down to the community or provincial and community level that, of course, will be necessary to repair some of those wounds. Now, of course, the Afghan government and the Afghan people are the ones who will be providing for themselves in the long term, but we have a very robust civilian strategy in place to try to help them rebuild. And what we've decided to do is focus our assistance in a number of ways. First of all, we don't want our assistance to be siphoned off through corruption. Corruption is a huge problem in Afghanistan. So what we've said is we're going to invest in those leaders, those ministries, all the way down to provinces where leaders and institutions demonstrate an ability to deliver for the Afghan people without being corrupt. In other words, we're going to reward good performance, and we're not going to continue to put good money after bad, because the American people shouldn't essentially fund any kind of corruption that doesn't benefit the Afghan people and help achieve our shared goals. Secondly, though, what we've decided to do is to focus our assistance to target in areas that can make an immediate impact for the Afghan people. For instance, we don't want to be engaged in nation building, where we're trying to take responsibility for every function of a government that needs a long time, I think, to reestablish its ability to deliver basic services. But what we do want to do is target our assistance in areas that can make the most immediate impact for the Afghan people. And one of those, for instance, is agriculture. Agriculture has long been a staple of Afghanistan's economy. It's been what they use to not only feed themselves, but to create exports that they can send abroad to grow their economy. So we've developed a robust civilian capacity. We have a lot of American agricultural experts, for instance, in Afghanistan. We're helping them to develop those crops that can feed their families, feed their communities, and get Afghanistan back on its feet. It's a huge challenge. It's complicated even further by the fact that Afghanistan has a drug trade. So what we're trying to do is encourage local farmers to grow crops that aren't feeding that drug trade. And that, of course, has to be factored into the strategy. But when you talk about the relationships that you mentioned, those tribal relationships, those local relationships that are so important, that's what we're focused on, is the kind of assistance can reach ordinary Afghans, make a difference in their lives, while on a complementary basis, we're providing more security for them. Because if there's no security in these communities, then there's never going to be a capacity for them to rebuild the kind of economic development that they need to sustain themselves over time. So we can't do it all ourselves. We can't put Afghanistan back on its feet all by ourselves, but what we can do as we carry out our military strategy is, in a complementary sense, improve the governance and development capacity that can have Afghanistan sustain itself as we begin to draw down our own presence.
Great. Yeah, okay, Brian, our next question's for you. It comes from Sean in New York, who simply asks, what are you doing to bring manufacturing back to the United States?
It's a great question, and it's one that we spend a lot of time focusing on. I would say that after several years of a manufacturing industry that has been really battered in the U.S., we are starting to see some positive signs, some indications of a manufacturing leveling off. And for the last several months, we've actually seen expansion in the manufacturing sector. And today, we received news that the manufacturing sector added jobs last month. That's the first time in a while that's happened. Obviously, we have a long way to go, and the manufacturing sector faces a lot of challenges. And so we are looking at that issue across several areas. First is identifying how to transition and help our manufacturing sector move into the 21st century. So we know that the manufacturing sector of the last century is not going to replicate itself in this century. We operate in a global economy. We operate in an economy where technology is rapidly changing the way that we make things. The fundamental question is, how can we continue using the skills that we have as the American economy to figure out how we can continue to lead and continue to make things here in this country? Clean energy, I'll just take one example, is an area where we think that there is great promise for American manufacturing. Right now, we're seeing substantial growth in a number of areas, like building the components that go into wind turbines, building the components that go into solar installations, and building advanced batteries as well. So we are focusing on targeted ways the government can help private businesses and help the private sector expand those operations. Some of that is through tax incentives, ensure that we are providing companies opportunities to benefit if they locate their operations here. In the Recovery Act, we passed a program that provides a 30% tax credit for companies that build renewable manufacturing here in the United States. That's something that's important, can encourage companies to invest. Another is helping our companies think about how they can access global markets, because in areas like clean energy, where the global market for goods is growing, we want to make sure that our companies are exploiting those opportunities and gaining greater market share abroad, because that gives them a chance to expand, hire workers, and have more jobs here. So we are looking at how to give our companies access to those markets, how to make sure that other countries are playing by the rules of our global trading system to ensure that they're not putting our companies at a competitive disadvantage. All of these steps are things that can help ensure that we have a strong renewable manufacturing base in this country. The president often says that while we can't look back and we can't go back to the way things were, we cannot have an America where we don't make things here in this country. Manufacturing is a lot about who we are as Americans. It's also a lot about powering our economy forward. It's a sector of the economy that is often more productive, more innovative, and where a lot of the ideas that then help the services sector grow as well come from. So a lot of these specific steps that we're taking, we're going to continue taking, but manufacturing, ensuring that we have a strong manufacturing sector in this country is a real priority for us.
Great. Thanks. Heather, the next question is for you. It comes from CB in New York. This was a question we got through the YouTube program. The price of prescription medicine is outrageous. What are you going to do to lower the cost of prescriptions and possibly cap the prices?
It's a good question, CB. One of the most important reasons for the president's effort on health reform is to address the spiraling cost of healthcare, and that includes prescription drugs. There are several key elements in the package that the House and Senate have passed that would address the cost of prescription drugs. One thing that's very important that a lot of people have been focused on is something called the donut hole, and that's a coverage gap in the Medicare prescription drug program. We can't tell how old you are from the question that you submitted, but we have an issue within some of our existing programs, as well as just the cost of prescription drugs that are rising under health insurance now. And so the health reform package contains several different ways to try to address that, including within Medicaid and Medicare. But really the issue driving healthcare and healthcare reform is about the exorbitant cost of healthcare and how it's rising and making it very unaffordable. Just yesterday, the president talked about a campaign volunteer that those of us who worked on the campaign and work here now heard the story and were very moved by it. She was a very, very active volunteer in the campaign in St. Louis, Missouri, and she came down with breast cancer, and she only had a health insurance policy that she referred to as get hit by a bus coverage. It wouldn't cover things like routine exams, and when she was diagnosed with breast cancer, it was too late, and she just recently passed away, which was really tragic. And the reason that the president invoked this woman and her commitment was that she was fighting for healthcare reform and to advocate for it even before she herself became sick. She was fighting for it, not just for herself, but for others. And that's really the motivation that the president's had in moving health reform forward and dealing with the high prices, whether it's the prescription drugs, whether it's deductibles, whether it's the premiums, whether it's access to care at all is critically important. So the cost of prescription drugs is very important, and there's different mechanisms to address that. But really, the big issue here of healthcare costs in general is